Have you ever spent years teaching something, only to realize you were the one who didn't understand it? Have you ever stood in front of others, confident in your knowledge, while feeling completely empty inside? Today's story is about a teacher who thought he had all the answers until one quiet moment with his students revealed a truth that shattered everything he believed. Stay with me until the end, because what this teacher discovered in that small classroom will shake the way you think about your own journey forever. In a village where dust roads connected modest homes and children played barefoot in the streets, there stood a small schoolhouse made of faded brick and wooden benches worn smooth by years of use. Inside that classroom, every morning at 8 o'clock sharp, a man named Daniel taught. Daniel was not just a teacher, he was the teacher, the one parents trusted, the one students feared just enough to respect, the one who knew every lesson plan, every answer, every rule. He had taught for 17 years. 17 years of standing at the chalkboard, writing carefully, explaining clearly, testing thoroughly. He took pride in his work. He corrected every mistake. He demanded discipline. He believed deeply that knowledge was power and that his job was to give that power to his students. But something was wrong. Something Daniel never spoke about, something he barely admitted to himself. He felt hollow. Every evening, after the students left and the classroom grew silent, Daniel sat at his wooden desk and stared at the empty chairs. He had taught hundreds of children, taught them math, history, grammar, science, taught them to memorize, to repeat, to follow instructions. But he could not remember the last time he felt truly alive. He could not remember the last time he learned something that made his heart beat faster. He had become a machine, efficient, reliable, empty. At night, lying in his small room above the schoolhouse, Daniel would think to himself, "Is this all there is? Teaching the same lessons year after year until I'm too old to stand?" He felt trapped, not by his job, but by his own certainty. He had stopped asking questions. He had stopped wondering. He had stopped learning. And deep down, in a place he didn't want to look, he knew the truth. He was teaching his students to become just like him. One morning, Daniel arrived at school earlier than usual. The sun had barely risen. The air was cool and still. He walked into the classroom and noticed something strange. His students were already there, sitting quietly in the corner, not talking, not playing, just sitting. Daniel frowned. "Why are you here so early?" A small girl named Leah looked up. Her eyes were red. She had been crying. "Sir," she said softly, "my father is very sick. I couldn't sleep, so I came here." Daniel paused. He didn't know what to say. He was not trained for this. He was trained to teach equations and spelling, not feelings. He cleared his throat. "I'm sorry to hear that, but class doesn't start for another hour. You should wait outside." Leah nodded and stood up slowly, but before she left, another student, a quiet boy named Aaron, spoke. "Sir, can I ask you something?" Daniel turned. "What is it?" Aaron hesitated. Then he said, "Do you ever feel afraid?" The question struck Daniel like a stone to the chest. He stared at this small boy who had just asked the most honest question Daniel had heard in years. Finally, he said quietly, "Yes, I feel afraid sometimes." Aaron nodded. "Me too." And for the first time in 17 years, Daniel sat down. Not at his desk, not in his chair at the front of the room. He sat on the floor next to his students. The other children began to arrive. Class started, but something had shifted inside Daniel. That day, instead of lecturing, he asked a question. "What," he said slowly, "is something you wish you could learn that I don't teach you?" The students looked confused. No teacher had ever asked them that. One girl raised her hand. "I want to learn how to stop being scared when I make mistakes." Another boy said, "I want to learn how to talk to people who don't like me." A third student whispered, "I want to learn why grown-ups seem so sad sometimes." Daniel felt something crack open inside his chest. These children weren't asking for math formulas. They weren't asking for history facts. They were asking for wisdom he didn't have. And in that moment, Daniel realized something that shook him to his core. He had been teaching, but he had stopped learning. He had been giving answers, but he had stopped asking questions. He had been standing at the front of the room, but he had forgotten how to sit beside someone and simply listen.
That evening, Daniel did something he had never done before. He asked his students if he could learn from them. The classroom went silent. "Sir," one student said, "you want to learn from us?" "Yes," Daniel said. "I've been teaching you for years, but I realize I've forgotten some very important things you still remember." He looked at Leah. "Leah, you came to school even though your heart was heavy. You didn't run away. You didn't give up. That's courage. I want you to teach me about that." He looked at Aaron. "Aaron, you asked me if I feel afraid. You were honest. You didn't pretend. That's bravery. I want to learn how to do that again." He looked around the room. "All of you, you still wonder. You still ask. You still feel things deeply. I've lost that. I need you to remind me." The children stared at him. Then, slowly, one by one, they began to speak. They spoke about their fears, their hopes, their confusions, their small joys. And Daniel listened, really listened. Not as a teacher waiting to correct, but as a human being learning. Weeks passed. The classroom changed. Daniel still taught lessons, but now he also sat in circles with his students. He asked them questions. He admitted when he didn't know something. He let them teach each other. He discovered that the quiet girl in the back knew more about kindness than any textbook could explain. He learned that the restless boy who couldn't sit still understood patience in ways Daniel had never considered. He realized that every single child carried wisdom he had overlooked. And slowly, something inside Daniel came back to life. The hollowness faded. The heaviness lifted. He began to feel awake again. Not because he had learned new facts, but because he had remembered how to learn. He had remembered that wisdom isn't just knowing the right answers. Wisdom is staying curious, staying humble, staying open. One afternoon, near the end of the school year, a parent visited the classroom. She watched Daniel sitting on the floor listening to a student explain something with passion. After class, she approached him. "Mr. Daniel," she said, "you've changed. The children talk about you differently now. What happened?" Daniel smiled softly. "I stopped pretending I knew everything. I started learning from the people I thought I was supposed to teach." The woman nodded slowly. "That's wisdom." Daniel shook his head. "No, that's humility. The wisdom came from them." My friend, here is what Daniel's story teaches us. We live in a world that tells us learning stops when we become adults, that once we have experience, once we have knowledge, once we have authority, we are finished growing. But that is a lie. The moment you stop learning is the moment you start dying inside. And sometimes, the greatest teachers are not the ones with the most degrees or the most experience. Sometimes they are the ones who are still willing to sit down, stay humble, and say, "I don't know. Teach me." Children remember how to wonder. They remember how to ask. They remember how to feel deeply without shame. And if we are willing to listen, they can teach us what we've forgotten. I want you to think about this. Who in your life have you overlooked? Who have you assumed has nothing to teach you? A child, a stranger, a person younger than you, a person with less experience. What if they hold the very lesson your heart has been searching for? Stay curious, my friend. Stay humble. Stay willing to learn. Because the moment you think you know everything is the moment you stop growing. And true growth never ends. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to remember that learning is a lifelong gift. Subscribe for more stories that awaken the heart and mind. Until next time, stay open, stay humble, and never stop learning.